Since my last video was so lengthy in discussion about cervical syndrome and CCI, I'd like to make a short summed up video about how this issue is diagnosed, how craniocervical instability and atlantoaxial instability is diagnosed. So, diagnosis of this problem is pretty hard to obtain in most medical systems. There are very particular types of imaging that can show this problem. It is, although it's debilitating and brutally painful, it's quite hidden and hard to see without certain diagnostic tools. So the diagnostic tools that are used, the two main ones that are used for this are an upright MRI and a rotational CT. So an upright MRI, well, you have to have a MRI machine that is upright. And most medical systems don't have an upright MRI. We only have one upright MRI in Canada. It's in Kamloops, oddly, which is like a really small city in kind of the mid-central area of BC there in the Thompson Valley. It's a private clinic, and so I've been there to do a follow-up MRI because I didn't want to travel back to the States and stuff, and I didn't have the money to do that. It was hard enough to even get the money for the MRI in Kamloops. But anyway, it's private pay. And it no one there like is capable of interpreting it. You got to send the MRI to, and that's what I did. I sent that MRI to the Polish neurosurgeon and a couple other, people who could interpret it and are aware of this condition. So yeah, because you have to be trained. They have to be trained to interpret it, and so you do the upright MRI. It's because it's showing the gravity. It's showing, what your neck looks like when you are up against gravity, when your head is up against gravity. So you want to obviously do it without any kind of neck collar on. You do it, just plain standing. And it shows, what the vertebra look like when you're up against the weight of your head. So that's really important. And then the next one is the rotational CT, which is also equally as important. And it's a CT that takes your, it takes your imaging when you are turning your head. So it's a little uncomfortable because people like me, especially me with atlantoaxial instability, have problems with turning my head. So you have to kind of just turn your head as much as you can before you feel kind of pain and, unsafe, right? So I turned my head as much as I could. Believe me, I had a headache after doing this imaging. I needed pain medication because I had quite the headache from having to turn my head as much as I could, which is uncomfortable for me and can, trigger cervical syndrome, right? So I had to turn my head as much as I could every time that I do those scans. And then these scans are sent to experts who know, are very aware of CCI and know how to diagnose it and evaluate the degree of severity of it. And of course, they evaluated it, my case. And again, I'm found to have a moderate to severe-ish kind of case of it. Not as severe as some people, not to the point of, people that are severe are totally bedridden, difficulty swallowing. They may have seizures or stroke-like kind of episodes. Can't talk today. And it's really scary and horrible. And they're often, young people that could be getting on with their lives and stuff, and they desperately need the surgery. So I'm kind of stuck where I'm a moderate to severe case, or mostly moderate, definitely not mild. I'm opioid dependent. I'm in severe pain. I have major life limits. I can go out for brief periods of time with the neck collar that I invented. I'm looking into making a new one. So anyway, that's what the results were. The first scans that I had were back in 2018 when I went to see Dr. Henderson in Maryland, in Silver Spring. He's like one of the top neurosurgeons in the world who deals with this problem, and there are a few others, mostly in the US. There's one in Iran who's actually pretty good. He was trained in Germany. He worked in Germany for several years, and then he went back home to Iran. There's one in India. The Polish neurosurgeon that I saw is, up and coming, but he's interested in the issue. He wants to help. He's aware of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I was impressed by his knowledge. So there are these few neurosurgeons in the world that you can send this imaging to, and they will do a report for you. And then you have this report for your doctor, your GP, to see. It's really important once you get this imaging done where you can access it, that you have that report put in your file, even though you obtained the report out of country, using by distance or whatever, whether you were able to travel or you just got the MRI, traveled to the MRI place, and then sent the report to whomever expert you choose to work with. Because it is a dangerous problem, and should you become unconscious or have any kind of medical emergency, the first responders need to know that you need to be in a cervical collar. If you're unconscious and you're flopping around everywhere, you need to be immobilized. Your neck needs to be immobilized. So anyway, I don't know of all the places that offer the upright MRI. I know that there's a place in Silver Spring, like in Silver Spring where Dr. Henderson is. There are two particular places that he wants you to go to, which are in the vicinity, and they provide you with that information before you consult with him. And then there's the upright MRI in Kamloops that I went to, which apparently isn't as good, but it still does the job. And I think that's the only upright MRI in Canada. I don't know about the US. It's something that one would have to look into. All I know is that you need an upright MRI and you need a rotational CT, and you need a professional who's willing to refer. My GP referred me to the Kamloops. Like, you need a doctor, right? Even if it's just a GP. My GP supports me, or my current GP supports me, and validates and knows very well that I have instability in my cervical spine, and does not doubt it whatsoever. I mean, imaging proves it, reports prove it, my severe pain that I'm in every day and my symptoms prove it. There's no question. So when I needed an updated set of images, 3 years later after having the first ones in Silver Spring, and I didn't want to travel and didn't have the money to go back there, he was willing to refer me. I couldn't just get the imaging by just going there and paying. I still needed a referral, even though it was private pay, by a physician. So I doubt that there's anywhere that you can just go to without having a referral from some kind of physician. But yeah, so you need a referral. That could be a barrier for some people if they're not being believed by anyone. So that's kind of sucks. And you can get the referral, I believe, from a physician you're working with that's going to end up interpreting the MRI. I'm pretty sure you could. I don't know all of how it works. I just know what I did. I fought very hard to be believed and validated. My husband and I spent money that we didn't have, raised money because we didn't have it, to stop the system from disbelieving me and attacking me, because we knew that my safety and my life was on the line. And it's too bad that people have to do this kind of thing. It's kind of disgusting, to be honest. It needs to change. We need to stop, medical gaslighting needs to end. We need new doctors who are, with it, that don't do that, and are open-minded and don't have a God complex, and are open-minded to new ways of diagnosing people with things, because the current diagnostic tools that we have, especially ones that are available in the public system, aren't that great. And just because a diagnostic tool says you don't have a problem doesn't mean you don't have a problem, And society needs to stop participating in the abuse by saying faker and lazy and attention seeker and all this kind of stuff. That's just bigotry, right? Like I said before. So anyway, back to the diagnosis. That's what you need. Upright MRI, rotational CT, most likely a referral from some kind of physician, unfortunately. And yeah, you got to do your own research a little bit, depending on where you're located. Where is the closest place that you can get an upright MRI? Who could, possibly do the referral for you? how you're going to get the money to do that, who's going to interpret it. You have to work with somebody who's an expert. There are a handful of those people on the globe. So it's something you need to fight for and work for, unfortunately, at this time. And there's no way around it. But if you care about your life and you want to know the truth and get on with your life in some way, or at least get on a path of, you know, caring for what your condition is, and, you know, fighting to get the treatment you need somehow, you got to start with the diagnosis, right? So it's hard for me watching people, suffer, who think they might have CCI and don't even know what the degree is, which discs are unstable, what to do. They're literally at zero in terms of knowing the truth. So the first step really is getting to the truth. And then you still have a fight after that, depending on how wealthy you are. I mean, if you're wealthy or well off, you can go straight into treatment. If you're not, then that's a different story. And this is why treatment needs to be more accessible than it is right now. So, but don't give up.